So the big story yesterday that I saw was a James Harden, Houston Rockets, great scorer. He doesn't want to play for the Rockets anymore, and he wants to go play with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. And he said, listen, I don't care if you can pay me $50 million the max. I don't want to play. He'd be the first $50 million a year guy in a state with no state tax. He's like, I'm not interested. I want to win games. So the NBA has always been the league. I kind of laugh. Very rarely will you find a baseball player that will play for the absolute less. He wants the max money. Basketball players all the time are like, I want to win games. But let's start with this. How great is James Harden? I mean, he's obviously a number one. Or is he? To me, there's 4 players in the NBA. That is it. And almost every industry works like this. 4 guys, to me, that you can hand the franchise to, and they have all the components of a number one. They can score. They at least give you an effort defensively. They can lead in crucial spots. They can at times elevate others, and you can't marginalize them. They don't have a hole in their game you can always marginalize. There's 4. Kevin Durant, LeBron, Steph Curry, and Kawhi Leonard. Steph tries on defense. He's not very good. But that's why they have Klay Thompson, who's great. What about Giannis? You can marginalize Giannis. Go ahead, bro. Shoot. He plays great with a lead, not from behind. For years, you all thought Westbrook was a 1. You can marginalize him easy. Have you ever seen teams defend Westbrook? They're begging him to shoot three-pointers. Embiid, I like him, but injuries and conditioning issues. Luka, really talented, but so far he's just a really talented young kid. He needs experience. Kyrie, he's hurt all the time. James Harden, incredibly ball-centric, barely gives an effort on the defensive end. I mean, I look up and down on all these guys that you've been trying to convince me are ones. Being a 1 is not just about scoring. It never has been. When I was a kid, George Gervin as a kid scored. He was never a 1. There's been a lot of guys in this league that scored. Daryl Morey in Houston were convinced this guy can be the centerpiece. We'll just find guys that can play with him. And they found out they struggled to get past the first round. He's not a 1. He's the world's potentially best 2. He's not as good as Durant. He's not as dependable in a big spot. He doesn't defend like Durant. And frankly, I don't think he has the leadership skills of Durant. Durant's a 1. LeBron's a 1. Steph's a 1. And Steph is smart enough and had the self-awareness enough. When he played with another 1, he backed off and let Durant be the man late in games. Just because you score a lot doesn't mean you're a 1. It never has. I've been watching this league for 40 years. There's been dozens of guys who are just great scorers, but you get nothing else with it. You don't get the leadership. They won't play on the defensive end. They don't really elevate anybody beyond themselves. You can marginalize them. It's a prime example. For years and years, you kept telling me AD was a 1. No, he's the world's best 2. He's not a leader. He can score and defend, but he doesn't really want to lead. That's not his game. When he was with a true 1, LeBron, he just moved over, became the world's best 2. There's nothing wrong with that. There's never been a 2 as good as Anthony Davis. But he was a 1 for years in New Orleans. They won 1 playoff series. You keep telling me Giannis is a 1. You can marginalize him. He's a great defender and a great kid and can score. Try trailing by 10 late, 4 minutes left. You want him to have the ball? And so, James Harden, give him credit. He's not just doing it as a money grab, and he's starting to realize he wants to drive to the arena every night. Let him be the scorer, not the man. Just drive to the arena. You're going to get 31 points. There's nothing wrong with that. He's great at it. But Kevin Durant is going to be the man. And in the huddle, last shot of a game, it's going to be Kevin Durant. So, when I look at Harden, everybody, think about this. The last time an NBA team won a title without my 4, Durant, Steph, LeBron, and Kawhi. The last time an NBA team won a title without one of those 4 was 2011. And if you are one of those 4, like Steph, and you play with another 1, then you have to have the self-awareness to go, okay, I'm Steph, I'm good, I'm not Kevin Durant, and step back. This was always the genius of D. Wade. People are like, D-Wade's a 1. He is unless he's playing with Shaq or LeBron. Then he becomes a 2. You go into the huddle late in the game, and D-Wade is not getting that shot. LeBron is. And Steph goes into that huddle, and mostly you're not getting that shot. KD is. So, Houston, they, made the mistake of confusing scorer with true 1. Big difference. I've seen it for 40 years. Huge difference. Chris Broussard, co-host of The Odd Couple with Rob Parker on Fox Sports Radio. NBA dude for us, the guy we lean on, joining me now live. So, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, it makes a good movie poster, but let's start with this. How in God's name, what can Houston get back? I mean, is this just one of those things that an agent throws out there, but can it happen?
Well, there's a few things to say about that. You mentioned an agent throwing it out there. People around the league are saying whoever put it out there, and it probably was agents. This goes for Harden and Westbrook. They did their clients a disservice because they made it that much harder for the Rockets to trade either one of these guys, because now teams know you got 2 disgruntled superstars on your hands. Where if the Rockets make a call to Team A and say, hey, we've been close, but we haven't gotten over the hump. We're thinking about going in a different direction. What would you give me for James Harden?
Right.
Now you're in control and you get a better package. Right. And so that whoever put it out there has hurt the leverage of the Rockets. But as far as can this work, I was just talking with an executive an hour ago, Colin. What they're saying, the word around the league is, now I haven't heard this from Kyrie or anybody close to him, but people around the league are saying Durant wants Harden and Kyrie does not.
Oh, boy.
All right, and because Harden would likely have the ball in his hands, right? Here's another thing for Kyrie to think about, or for those that are looking at his situation. Who is James Harden close with in the organization in Brooklyn? Mike D'Antoni, who was just hired as a coach for the Brooklyn Nets to assist Steve Nash. D'Antoni said James Harden is the best offensive player he's ever seen. D'Antoni, every offense he's created has had one guy handling the ball and creating the offense for everybody else. Who you think he's giving the ball to in Brooklyn if they get James Harden?
Right.
It's Harden.
Right.
And I don't see Kyrie wanting to be the 3rd best player on the team. He's never been the 3rd best player on the team.
Yeah.
And so it would be a chemistry experiment to the nth degree. Now, I got to say this. As skeptical as I am about it being able to work, I mean, you'd have to give him a puncher's chance because that is some overwhelming individual talent.
Yeah.
But it would be a chemistry experiment of the most extreme order.
Yeah, I don't think Kyrie wants to hear in the huddle over and over again, hey, you're going to be a decoy here, Kyrie. We're going to set it up for Harden and Kevin Durant. I don't think that'd play well very long.
Set up in the right corner, Kyrie. Set up in the right corner.
I will say this. LeBron created player empowerment. I've always defended players who are mobile. You and I in our careers have been mobile. I think I'd be a hypocrite. But I do wonder, in the last 2 years, if this deal went through, Kevin Durant, Harden, Kyrie choose New York, AD, LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George choose Los Angeles. It feels very coastal. There are not a lot of stars if this goes through in the middle of the country. Is this good for the league?
Well, obviously, talking NBA like this in the offseason is great for the league, right? Almost, if you want to call it hot stove like baseball, whatever. This is great. And it creates more storylines, and we get excited about it. If Harden were to go to Brooklyn, we can't wait to watch the Nets and see what that becomes. I also would say this, Colin. Right now, yeah, LA's is hot. Brooklyn is hot. But I just think I even hesitate to say cyclical. It's just kind of the way it is these past few years. We could go back a few years and say LeBron chose Cleveland. We could say Westbrook chose to stay in Oklahoma City. Paul George chose Oklahoma City over the Lakers. So I think that I don't want to write off the small markets and say they can't get anybody and they're doomed. Nobody's choosing the Knicks. and that's the marquee market, in the country. So I won't go that far. What it is, and I'm with you, Colin, I'm for player movement, player empowerment. I never killed LeBron for creating super teams, never killed KD for going to Golden State. But I'm going to be honest, there's a little bit of me that's just like, when I look at Brooklyn, and I could say the same thing about LeBron trying to go after Kawhi last year. You had Anthony Davis coming. Now you need Kawhi. and when I look at Brooklyn, I'm like, KD, you're great on paper. Not just Kyrie, who's awesome, but Jared Allen, Joe Harris, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, some really talented role players around you. And now you want to add James Harden. There's a sentiment, there's a little bit of you that's like, do dudes want to compete? I mean, really, like, we got to get every single star to play with us. It bothers me a little bit. I haven't killed those guys, and I won't. But I look back at a quote Jerry Krause had about Michael Jordan. He said he never came to me about trading for players. He never came to me about drafting players. He never came to me asking to add a player. He thought he was so darn good that he could win with anybody. There's a little of me that likes that. And I'm telling you, when you debate the GOAT, that comes up.
Yeah.
So that's all I'll say about
that's okay. I don't necessarily disagree. So sometimes I see a trade. I remember years ago when I saw the Pau Gasol trade to the Lakers. I was on a plane on a tarmac, and I'm like, what? How did they get Pau Gasol? How did that work out? So now Dennis Schroeder is not Pau Gasol, but he's an 18-point-a-game guy. He's young. He's athletic. And reportedly he's going to the Lakers, and they're not giving up much. And I thought, what? That's kind of, it feels a little bit like a little steal for the Lakers here. I mean, Dennis Schroeder's a real player, right?
No question. There was talk, remember, they get DeMar DeRozan for Kuzma and Danny Green. And this is better. Well, obviously, you didn't have to give up Kuzma, but you also got, I think, a better fit in Dennis Schroeder, who shoots it well enough where he won't shrink the floor for LeBron and AD. We know they need spacing. He can create plays for himself and others off the dribble. He's got a lot of swag to him, which I like. He showed in OKC playing with Chris Paul and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that he can play on the ball or off the ball. So I like it a lot. Colin, part of what I'm hearing is that KD is saying, look, how are we going to beat those two studs with the Lakers, Anthony Davis and LeBron? And it's like, we need a third star that they don't have. And that's part of the impetus for all of this Harden talk, because here's the thing, the Lakers are going to be better, assuming LeBron doesn't fall off, and it's coming at some point, but assuming he has another year where he's a the top player in the league or top 3 player in the league, Anthony Davis is going to be a lot better with the confidence from winning the championship, knowing he can get it done. And now you added Schroeder, who's better than Rajon Rondo at this stage. Yeah, Lakers going to be a handful.
Good stuff. Chris Broussard, Odd Couple, you and Rob Parker, weekdays 7 to 10 Eastern, Fox Sports Radio and iHeartRadio. It's great seeing you, bud.
You too, man. You too.